The first time I heard the bells, it was 3 in the morning. Not a distant echo, not a dream. They rang with weight, metal against metal, heavy enough to rattle the glass in my bedroom window. Detroit was silent outside, a city of empty streets and boarded homes, but those bells split the dark like a blade. I sat up in bed, heart hammering. The sound did not fade. It rolled in long waves, pulling me to the window. I pushed aside the curtain and stared at the skyline, broken factories, silent smokestacks, a city hollowed out by time, and there, across the roofs, the tower stood. The church had been abandoned for years. People said it closed after the last congregation fled. Windows shattered, doors chained shut, ivy crawling over stone like veins. I had passed it 100 times on my way to work, nothing more than another ruin. But now its tower glowed faint white against the night, and the bells inside shook the bones of the city. My name is Justin. I'm 48 years old, and I do not scare easily. I have lived through layoffs, foreclosure, crime, nights when gunfire echoed 2 blocks down. But this sound, this impossible ringing from a place left for dead, slid into me like a knife of ice. I pressed my palms to my ears. The vibration did not stop. It was inside my skull, humming in my teeth, crawling down my spine. For a moment I thought I might black out. Then, as sudden as it had begun, the ringing cut off. Silence swallowed everything. I leaned against the wall, gasping. My wife, Nancy, stirred beside me, mumbling in her sleep. She had not woken. My son, Sean, down the hall, remained silent. Only me. Only I had heard. I should have let it go. I should have climbed back into bed, told myself it was a dream, but the image of that glowing tower gnawed at me. I pulled on my coat, slipped my boots by the door, and stepped out into the Detroit night. The air smelled of rust and smoke. Streetlights flickered, half of them dead. The pavement was cracked, weeds splitting through. Every house I passed sagged under years of abandonment. No one else walked the block. Only me, following the memory of sound toward that broken steeple. The closer I drew, the colder the air grew. Not winter cold, but a sterile chill, like the breath of a hospital morgue. My lungs tightened, my breath fogged, though the night was mild. I gripped the railing of a rusted fence just to steady myself. The church rose from the street like a carcass of stone. The front doors were chained, the wood swollen with rot. Graffiti bled across the walls. Windows stared empty, glass long gone. But the tower still stood proud, its outline sharp against the stars. And high above, a pale shimmer crawled around its spire, like moonlight trapped in water. I stepped onto the cracked courtyard. My boots scraped glass and rubble. The air pressed heavy, buzzing faintly, like the silence that follows thunder. I stopped, chest pounding. Something shifted above me. Movement. A figure stood on the edge of the tower, arms folded, unmoving. The pale shimmer wrapped around him like smoke. I could not see his face, only the sharp line of wings folded behind his back, feathers dark against the glow. The bells had not moved. The iron shapes inside the tower hung still, yet I knew. He had rung them. For me, I stumbled back, my heel catching broken stone. My mind screamed to run, to turn, to pretend I had never heard, never seen. But my body betrayed me. My legs locked. My eyes refused to close. The figure did not leap. He did not speak. He only watched. The silence burned worse than the sound. I do not know how long I stood there, trembling in the shadow of that ruin. But when the streetlights blinked out one by one, the tower alone remained lit. The glow pulsed, steady as a heartbeat, and though the bells had gone silent, their echo dragged through my veins. I turned finally, staggering back through the streets, every shadow heavy, every window watching. I did not breathe until I reached my door. My hands shook as I fumbled with the key. Inside, the house was quiet. Nancy still asleep, Sean unmoved, the world normal. But not me. Even now as I write this, I swear the sound has never left. It hums in the marrow, deep in the blood, waiting. I fear tonight the bells will ring again. And if they do, I know they will not stop its sound. The next night I tried to sleep. I told myself the sound had been a dream, some echo of stress. But at 3 o'clock, the bells returned, louder, heavier. They shook the window glass until dust fell from the frame. Nancy did not wake. Sean slept without stirring. The vibration lived only in me, pressing deep in the marrow. I pressed the pillow to my head, but the ringing cut straight through. When it stopped, silence pressed harder. My chest ached as if the air had weight. I rose, dressed, and stepped outside. The streets lay empty. Street lamps flickered, half burned out. Houses sagged behind broken fences. My footsteps echoed too far, as if the blocks were hollow. The church stood at the end of the road. Stone blackened, windows hollow, vines coiled through cracks like veins. The tower stretched into the clouds, sharper than anything around it. A pale glow pulsed at its tip, faint but steady, like a heartbeat of light. I crossed the courtyard. Glass cracked beneath my boots. The air grew colder with each step, sterile and sour. My skin tightened, breath fogging though the night was mild. The doors were chained, swollen with rot. Rust bit deep into the links, but a narrow gap yawned between the planks. I pushed through. Wood groaned, and I slipped inside. The smell hit me first. Mold, ash, a hint of incense clinging to stone. My throat closed. The nave stretched wide and dark. Pews collapsed in heaps. Stained glass shattered across the floor like broken jewels. Above me, the spiral stair coiled into shadow. I stood at its foot, staring upward. Dust drifted in faint beams of light. The air buzzed low, a vibration below hearing. My pulse climbed in time with it. Something scraped above me, slow, deliberate, heavy. I clenched the rail and began to climb. Step after step, wood groaning, echoes rolling down. The dust stung my eyes. My lungs ached. I pressed my shoulder to the wall, steadying my breath, then forced myself higher. Cold deepened as I climbed. Breath fogged, my fingers numbed. At the last turn, the stair opened into the bell chamber. The bells hung vast, black mouths yawning over me. They swayed gently, though no rope touched them. Faint light seeped through the cracks in the stone, crawling across the floor in shifting lines, and in the far corner he stood, the figure from the night before. Wings folded, body rigid, feathers torn, singed at the edges. His form glowed harsh and metallic, not warm. His eyes fixed on me. I froze, throat locking. My body wanted to run, but my legs rooted to the stone. Then the bells screamed, not by hand, not by wind. They rang like thunder striking iron. The chamber shook. My skull vibrated. I dropped to my knees, palms pressed over ears, but the force drilled through bone. The glow spread. White cracks raced across the chamber walls, searing symbols I could not understand. My teeth rattled. Blood slid warm down my lip. He stepped forward. Wings twitched. Sparks leapt from feather tips. His hand rose, and the sound stopped. Silence slammed down, heavier than the noise. I gasped, hunched on the floor. The air stank of ozone. My heart stumbled. He spoke, not loud, not soft, but each word carved straight through me. "You were chosen," I tried to speak. My lips formed nothing. He did not wait for an answer. He turned toward the open arch where the night leaked through. The bells groaned low, vibrating like an aftershock. He spread his wings, vast, ragged, endless, and leapt into the sky. The chamber emptied, light bleeding away. Dust drifted in the silence. I staggered to the edge and looked down at the city of empty streets and dying lights. The world seemed smaller from the tower, frail beneath the shadow of what I had seen. and somewhere, faint and certain, the bells still rang. Morning light did nothing to ease the weight. The silence of the house felt wrong, too smooth, as if something had been cut out of it. I sat at the table with a cold cup, watching dust float in the beam from the window. Nancy hummed softly as she moved about the kitchen. Sean called from the hall, laughter in his voice. They were whole. I was not. The bells had not rung, but they lived inside me. My teeth ached as though metal hummed in the roots. My skull vibrated with memory. When Nancy touched my shoulder, I startled so hard she frowned. I muttered something about work and left the house. I walked without destination until my feet carried me to a gate strangled by ivy. Beyond it stood a rectory, leaning under its own roof. The path was cut by weeds. The porch sagged. The cross above the door hung tilted as if someone had forced it down. The door bore scratches at the lock, but it opened when I knocked. A chain held it. One pale eye studied me through the gap. "You heard them," a voice said. I nodded once. The chain slid. The door opened. Inside smelled of wax paper and incense that had sunk into the wood decades ago. Candles melted in clusters on every surface, thick with hardened rivers. Books were stacked high, cracked spines, brittle pages. Salt lined each window, fine and deliberate. The man who let me in was small, shoulders bent, hair gone white. His collar was frayed. His hands trembled, not with age, but with some pressure held too long. He gestured toward a chair. I sat. The wood complained under my weight. He studied the salt with 2 fingers, touching, counting. Only after a long pause did he speak again. 3 in the morning? I said yes. His face tightened. He lifted a Bible from the shelf, spine split, pages lined with notes. He set it on the table. The margins crawled with black ink, words written over words, some pressed so hard the pen had torn the paper. One word appeared again and again, underlined, crowded into the edges. Watcher. He turned the book so I could see. His finger pressed a verse. "They call a witness," he said. His voice carried no warmth. My chest clenched. I saw the tower again, the figure wrapped in glow, wings folded sharp. My throat dried. "What does that mean?" I forced out. "Not everyone hears," he said. "Not everyone sees. Only those drawn into the trial." The word trial cracked inside me. My palms sweated. He closed the Bible and slid it aside. His hand vanished into a drawer and returned with a rosary. The beads were blackened, fused in places as if they had been burned. He dropped it into my palm. It was warm, as though it carried a pulse. "It belonged to the last one," he said. I stared at him. What happened to him? He looked past me toward the salt at the window. His eyes did not blink. His family lived. They never spoke his name again. He was removed from their picture. Removed. The word struck harder than death. The rosary dug into my skin. My knuckles whitened. He leaned forward, voice low but sharp. "When rules are spoken, listen. Rules are not mercy. Break them, and you will not burn. You will vanish. Life around you will go on as if you never touched it." My throat locked. I thought of Nancy, of Sean. Their faces blurred in my mind, almost as if the memory was already being thinned. He reached into another drawer, slid a small iron key across the table. "The side door. It sticks. Do not break it. Make it open with breath, not with force. If you hear the horn but cannot see it, fall to your knees, and when the flame appears, remember, choice is never mercy. It is function." The key was cold, heavier than it should have been. I whispered, "Why, tell me this." His mouth curved, tired and thin. "Because someone told me," he said, "and because I may already be failing." A tremor rolled through the floor. Candles flickered, wax bled down in thick streams. My ears popped, as if air had been sucked out of the room. He stiffened, hand pressing the salt line until grains scattered. His eyes flicked upward. "You feel it." I nodded, chest tight. The rosary buzzed faintly in my hand. For a moment I thought I heard a note, sharp and clean. A bell struck far off or deep inside my skull. The sound faded, but the pressure lingered. When I stood, the chair groaned behind me. My hands shook as I slid the key and rosary into my pocket. At the door he stopped me. His voice was softer now. "Do not stand in doorways at night," he said. "Doors confuse the ones who count." The chain slid. The door opened to gray sky. Cool air touched my face like relief, though it carried no warmth. I stepped off the porch. Gravel crunched. His voice called my name once, low. "Justin?" I turned. He lifted 2 fingers, not quite a blessing. His eyes were hollow. "Do not promise what you cannot keep," he said. "They pay attention to vows." The door closed. I walked back through the silent street, key cold in one pocket, rosary hot in the other, the taste of ash thick on my tongue. Every window I passed showed my reflection doubled, a second shape faint behind me, thin as breath, waiting. Night returned heavy. The house breathed quiet, every room dark. Nancy slept curled on her side. Sean's door was shut. The world looked ordinary, but my skin already knew. At 3, the bells began again. No fading, no warning. They crashed into bone, louder than before, shaking the glass in the frame, pulling me upright. I tried to resist. I pressed my head against the wall. The sound bled through everything. The rosary in my pocket hummed like a trapped wasp. The key burned cold against my leg. I left the house. The street swallowed me. No cars, no voices, just the pull toward the tower. The courtyard lay in ruin, shards glittering under pale light. The chains on the door sagged, broken since the night before. I slipped through, shoulders brushing wood damp with rot. Inside, the air was thicker. The pews slumped deeper into shadow. Every breath dragged mold into my lungs. Light bled from the cracks above, tracing symbols across the floor, shapes that shifted when I tried to follow them. The stair waited, spiral, endless. I set my hand on the rail. The iron felt slick, damp as flesh. I climbed. Each step bent under my weight. The air throbbed with low vibration. My chest squeezed with every turn. My vision narrowed. Still, I climbed. Halfway up, my ears popped. A pressure dropped heavy on my skull. Something moved above, the scrape of weight, slow, intentional. I forced my legs higher. Sweat ran down my back through the air had turned frigid. At the final step, I entered the chamber. The bells loomed black, suspended in stillness, yet they trembled, waiting. Light seeped through stone like liquid, crawling over the walls. He was there. The figure stood near the arch, wings folded tight, feathers torn and charred. His body glowed with a hard metallic light, neither fire nor flesh. His eyes found me instantly. The bells screamed, iron mouths roared, air collapsing around me. I dropped to my knees, palms to my ears. Pain drilled through bone. My teeth rattled. Blood spilled from my nose. My chest lurched as if my ribs would shatter. The glow swelled, crawling across the floor in cracks. Lines of fire burned in shapes I could not name. The chamber shook, stone raining dust. He stepped forward. One wing twitched. Sparks leapt from the feathers. He raised his hand. The bells cut off. Silence fell so sudden it crushed harder than the sound. I gasped, hunched forward, throat raw. The air reeked of ozone. My fingers shook against the stone. He spoke. The voice was not loud, but it carved through me. "You were chosen." The words burned deeper than the bells. My breath tore in shallow bursts. My body refused to answer. He moved closer. The light around him bent the shadows away. His wings began to open, feathers stretching, ragged, endless. The chamber swelled with blinding white. I remembered the first law. Do not look when the wings open. I squeezed my eyes shut. Heat poured over me. The air hissed like metal in fire. Behind my lids, the light pressed red, too strong to block. My skull screamed with the pressure. Something brushed the floor, soft as falling ash. The weight of presence thickened until I thought my bones would splinter. I forced myself lower, forehead against the stone. The bells groaned once more, not loud but long, deep as the earth itself. My ribs vibrated, my heart stuttered. Then, silence again. I opened my eyes. The chamber had changed. Symbols scarred the stone, black as if burned in. The bells hung still, smoking faintly at the rim. Dust drifted slow, glowing in the last threads of light. He stood in the arch, wings half spread. For the first time I saw his face, clear, not soft, not merciful, a warrior carved from fire and ruin. Scars laced his cheek, his eyes cut like sharpened glass. He looked at me as if weighing more than flesh. "You will listen," he said. The words struck like verdict. He stepped into the open air. Wings unfurled in full, blocking the stars. The chamber shook with the force. And then he leapt, vanishing into the void above the city. Only the echo of wings remained, beating against the night. I knelt on stone, blood drying on my face, ears ringing with silence that felt sharper than sound. The rosary in my pocket burned hot, beads fusing tighter. The key dug cold into my thigh. I dragged myself down the stair, body weak, chest hollow. Every shadow watched, every creak followed. The night after the encounter, I did not try to resist. At 3, the bells struck again. I was already awake, sitting in the dark, the rosary burning against my palm, the key heavy in my pocket. The sound tore through the house, yet Nancy did not stir. Sean's breath carried steady down the hall. Their world was untouched, only mine split open. I walked into the street before the bells had even finished. The air throbbed with them, windows shook, dogs barked once, then went silent. My feet carried me without choice. The church tower glowed, brighter than before, pale fire bleeding into the sky. The doors stood ajar, chains broken, wood hanging loose. I pushed through, the hinges groaning. Inside, the air pressed tight, thick with the smell of burned stone. Symbols from the night before still smoldered across the walls. Lines of black carved by fire. The pews leaned into shadow. The stair waited. I climbed. Each step bent, each breath scraped my throat raw. At the top, the chamber blazed. The bells glowed faint red, as though heat pulsed in their cores. He was waiting. Michael. Wings half-folded, body rigid, eyes fixed on me with weight sharp enough to pin me in place. Light seeped from him like steam from a forge. I dropped to my knees before I could think. His voice carried through the stone, quiet, yet louder than thunder. "There are rules." The words rang inside me, each one striking bone. He stepped closer. The glow bled across the floor, drawing shapes that twined and shifted. His wings flared slightly, sparks leaping from the ragged feathers. "You will hear 3, he said. The first burned into my skull as he spoke. "When the wings open, do not look. To see them in full is to be unmade." The air surged with heat. I squeezed my eyes shut. Images of blinding white seared my mind even without sight. My heart faltered. He circled me slowly, steps silent yet heavy as gravity itself. His voice cut again. "When the horn sounds unseen, you will fall to your knees. If you remain standing, you will be counted against." The bells groaned low in answer, a vibration deep as the earth. My knees pressed harder into stone, bones aching. I could not imagine rising. Then came the third. His voice sharpened, colder. "When the white fire descends, you will choose. One soul of blood will endure. The others will be removed." The word removed struck harder than death. My stomach turned. I saw Nancy's face, Sean's laughter. The thought of either erased bent my chest until I could not breathe. Michael stopped before me. The glow wrapped him in burning light. His wings flared wider, filling the chamber, though I did not raise my eyes. "Obey," he said. "Witness." The silence that followed was worse than any sound. I felt my ribs ache under the weight of it. Sweat dripped cold down my neck. I whispered, raw, "Why me?" His reply was a blade. "You were chosen." Nothing more. The bells rang once, a single strike that rattled stone. The floor shook. Dust fell around me. When I lifted my head, the chamber was empty. Only smoke curled in the glow's fading edges. I rose on shaking legs. The rules burned in my mind, carved into thought. 3 laws, absolute. Each word tasted like iron. Do not look at the wings. Kneel when the unseen horn sounds. Choose one when the white fire falls. I stumbled down the stair, clinging to the rail. Every step echoed with those words. My hands sweated against the iron. My teeth ached with the sound of bells that no longer rang. Outside, the night was silent. The tower stood black against the sky. No glow, no voice, only emptiness pressing harder than presence. I walked home, the rosary hot, the key cold, my chest hollow with dread. Nancy still slept, her face calm. Sean's door still shut, the rhythm of his breathing steady, their world safe, my world broken. I stood in the hall, listening to their breaths, feeling the silence close in. 3 rules, and the weight of a choice waiting for me. The first sign came to Nancy. She stood at the kitchen window rinsing dishes when her breath caught. I heard glass fall, the sharp scatter across porcelain. I rushed in. She stood frozen, staring through the window. Her hand trembled. Water still running. Outside, a feather smoldered on the sill. Black at the edges, glowing faint red in the center. Smoke rose in thin ribbons. Nancy whispered, "It fell from the sky." I snatched it up with a towel. The heat bit straight through the cloth. I hurled it into the sink. Water hissed. The feather blackened and sank, smoke rising until nothing remained but ash. Nancy clutched her chest, shaking. She asked what it meant. I told her nothing. A bird, only a bird. My lie tasted of blood. That night I woke to a sound, not bells. A low drone in the hall, a vibration that pressed the walls. Sean cried out. I rushed to his room. He sat upright, hands clamped to his ears. Blood trickled from his left nostril. His eyes were wide, pupils blown. "I heard the trumpet," he gasped, "but there was no trumpet." The second rule burned in my skull. Kneel when the unseen horn sounds. I pulled him down, both of us kneeling on the carpet. His small body shook against mine. The drone faded. The silence that followed was heavier. When he slept again, sweat dried on his face. I stood in the dark of the hall, trembling. My knees still pressed the carpet. The third sign came 2 days later. We were at the table. Nancy laughed at something Sean said. The sound almost cut through the dread. For a moment, the house felt whole. Then the light changed. The room dimmed, though the lamp still burned. Shadows deepened, stretching long and thin. Nancy's laugh froze in her throat. Sean dropped his fork. Metal clattered against the plate. At the far end of the table, a small flame appeared. White, pure, no smoke, no heat. It hovered just above the surface, swaying as though in unseen wind. My heart seized. The third law thundered in memory. When the white fire descends, you will choose. Nancy whispered my name. Sean clutched her arm. They looked to me, waiting, but I could not move. I stared at the flame, breath locked, chest aching. The fire grew brighter, pulsing like a heartbeat. The air thickened. The walls groaned. Plates rattled. The table trembled. Nancy cried out. Sean's chair toppled as he clung to her. I slammed my fist into the wood. Not yet! The shout tore my throat raw. The flame wavered. For a moment, I thought it would engulf the room. Then it shrank, folding into itself until nothing remained. Silence swallowed everything. Nancy sobbed softly. Sean pressed his face into her side. They did not ask what it was. They were too afraid. I cleaned the plates with hands that shook. I wiped the table until it gleamed, as though scrubbing could erase the mark of what had hovered there. When night came, I could not sleep. I sat in the dark with the rosary, beads fused in places from heat. The crucifix burned against my palm. At midnight I walked the yard. The air tasted metallic, sharp like blood. The sky glowed faint at the horizon, though no city lights lay that way. The tower pulsed in the distance, pale as a wound. Every shadow in the grass leaned toward it. When I returned inside, Nancy stirred. Her eyes opened heavy with fear. She whispered, "Something is happening to us." I could not deny it. I could not tell her the truth. I said, "I will keep you safe." The words left me hollow. The house settled. The silence was worse than sound. Later that night, I woke again. My throat was dry. I walked to the kitchen. The window glass reflected my face, but a second shape stood behind me, tall, winged, unmoving. I turned. Nothing. The reflection lingered a second longer, then dissolved. I pressed my forehead to the glass, breath fogging the cold pain. My chest ached with every beat. The laws pounded in my head, relentless, absolute. Do not look at the wings. Kneel when the unseen horn sounds. Choose when the white fire comes. The first had already been tested. The second had already struck. The third hovered close, waiting. I stood alone in the dark, holding the rosary until my palm bled, the beads cutting into skin. The bells returned with no warning. Not in my head this time, not confined to me. They ripped through the night, shaking windows, rattling dishes, splitting the silence of every street. Dogs howled, alarms screamed, lights flicked on one after another. The whole city woke to the sound that had stalked me alone. Nancy cried out from the bedroom. Sean rushed into the hall, eyes wide. They clutched each other, staring at me, asking questions I could not hear over the roar. The house trembled. Frames fell from the walls. The air quivered as though reality itself was shaking apart. I ran to the window. The tower blazed white, brighter than any light I had seen, stabbing into the clouds like a spear. The bells inside swung with no rope, no hand, only force. But it was not only the tower. Across the sky, thin cracks of light split the clouds. Shards of brilliance leaked through, too sharp for eyes, too heavy for breath. People poured into the street. Some fell to their knees, hands clamped over their ears. Others screamed, running aimless in the glow. The bells pounded. The vibration shook the marrow. Every strike rattled my teeth. My chest ached as if ribs would snap. Sean covered his ears and sobbed. Nancy whispered prayers, words spilling fast. I could not stay inside. The pull was stronger now, dragging me like a chain. I stepped into the street. The glow washed over every house, every car, every tree, painting the world bone white. The sound pressed down, crushing air from lungs. My knees buckled. I forced myself upright. Through the chaos I saw him, Michael. He stood in the middle of the road, untouched by panic. His body shone with searing light. His wings folded tight, edges smoking. His eyes cut straight to me through the distance. He lifted one hand. The bells silenced at once. The city froze. People gasped, holding their heads. Stunned by the sudden absence of sound, the silence was worse. Michael's gaze did not shift. The glow around him pulsed. I knew it as surely as I knew my name. He was here for me. I took one step forward. The air thickened. My heart staggered. Nancy screamed behind me. Sean shouted my name. Their voices sounded far away, muffled under the pressure of his presence. Michael began to walk. Each step fell heavy, though the ground did not shake. The glow spread from his body in slow waves, bending shadows, swallowing the edges of houses. When he stopped, the night itself seemed to halt. You will obey, he said. The words struck inside my chest. My knees hit pavement. I gasped for air, trembling. Around me, others knelt too, though their eyes were glazed, unseeing. They were not his focus, only I was. Nancy clung to Sean. They stared, pale with terror, but they did not kneel. Their eyes held no recognition. To them, he was not visible, only me. Michael spread one wing. Light burst outward, blinding. I squeezed my eyes shut, remembering the first law. My breath tore in ragged gasps. My body shook under the heat. The wing folded again. Darkness returned, jagged. A sound pierced the air, not the bells. A long, low horn drawn from nowhere, echoing everywhere. I dropped flat, forehead against the pavement. The second law. Kneel when the unseen horn sounds. My body obeyed faster than thought. The horn wailed once more, then fell silent. I lifted my head. The sky split open. A seam tore above the tower, light pouring down in rivers brilliant and merciless. Clouds shredded into ash. The ground quivered as if something vast pressed against it from above. At the center of the seam, white fire burned, spiraling downward. The third law slammed into my mind. Choose when the fire descends. My breath locked, my stomach twisted. The fire dropped lower, blazing, pulsing like a living thing. Its light fell across rooftops, across streets, across my family. Nancy shielded Sean, her arms around him. Her eyes shone with terror. Sean clung to her, shaking. The fire hovered above them, waiting. Michael looked at me. His eyes burned with verdict, not mercy. The bells struck once, final and absolute. The trial had begun. The white fire hung above us, seething, alive. It pulsed like a beating heart, each throb heavier than the last. The air thickened with heat, though no flame touched skin. Every breath cut sharp as glass. Nancy clutched Sean, dragging him back toward the house. But the fire followed, hovering, waiting. Its glow poured over them, erasing shadow, painting every detail too clear. Their eyes were wide, terror and confusion frozen in place. Michael stood between us, wings folded, his gaze locked on me. His voice carried without sound inside the marrow. Choose. The word cracked through me. I stumbled forward, arms trembling, my throat burned. The third law screamed in my skull. One soul would endure, the others erased. Nancy's voice reached me, broken, frantic. "Justin!" Sean cried against her voice, thin and small. "Dad, help!" The fire dropped lower, brushing the street. Pavement hissed. The smell of burning stone filled the air. Sparks leapt from the ground like insects. I tried to speak, but nothing came. My chest locked tight, heart hammering against bone. My legs gave way, and I fell to my knees. Michael's eyes did not soften. He watched with the patience of eternity, waiting for judgment to be spoken. Nancy's face blurred in light. Sean's voice pierced my skull. The fire bent closer, licking the ground between them. I thought of the rosary in my pocket, beads fused, crucifix burned. I thought of the rules carved into me. Do not look at the wings. Kneel when the horn sounds. Choose when the fire falls. But there was no choice, not between them. My voice broke free, raw, torn from somewhere deeper than flesh. "Take me!" The fire froze. Nancy gasped, clutching Sean tighter. Michael's head tilted, eyes narrowing as though weighing the words. His wings shifted, feathers rattling with sparks. "I choose myself," I cried. "Leave them. Take me." The fire roared, a spiral of white tearing downward. It struck me full, blinding, burning without heat. My skin lit with light, my veins seared like molten wire. Nancy screamed. Sean shouted my name. Their voices dissolved in the blaze. I was lifted from the ground, spine arching, arms spread against the force. My vision split. I saw the street, The tower, the sky torn open. I saw Michael's face, still and merciless. The fire poured into me, endless, swallowing everything I had been. My last thought was of Nancy's laugh, Sean's small hand in mine. The memory bent, twisted, pulled thin. It slipped through my grasp like smoke. Then silence. I collapsed to the pavement. The fire vanished. The seam in the sky sealed shut. Darkness returned. I gasped, clawing at the ground. My chest heaved. I was alive. My body shook, scorched without burn. I looked up. Nancy stood clutching Sean, their faces pale, terrified. They stared not at the sky, not at the tower, but at me. No recognition. Sean whispered, "Who is that man?" Nancy pulled him back, eyes never leaving mine. She shook her head. "Stay inside. Do not look at him." Her words gutted me deeper than flame. Michael watched from the edge of the light, his wings folded, expression unchanged. His verdict had fallen. "You are forgotten," he said. And then he was gone, rising into the void above, leaving silence heavy as stone. The street was empty when the glow faded. No fire, no bells, no cracks in the sky. Only me, kneeling on cold pavement, shaking like a man gutted and left to breathe. The house loomed close, but it was no longer mine. The curtains fluttered as if stirred by wind I could not feel. Through the glass I saw them, Nancy and Sean, moving in frantic silence, their faces pale, their hands clinging. Their fear was real, but it was not fear of losing me. It was fear of the stranger outside. I rose on unsteady legs. My voice clawed its way out. "Nancy! Sean!" The window rattled. Nancy's head turned, her eyes fixed on me. No flicker of recognition, only a mother shielding her child from someone unknown. Sean pressed his face into her side. His small voice carried faint through the glass. "Why is he watching us?" The words stabbed deeper than the fire. I stumbled back. My chest burned. My throat closed. Every part of me screamed to break the door, to prove myself, to drag them back into memory. But the weight of Michael's verdict pressed down heavier than stone. "You are forgotten." The phrase repeated, endless, hollowing me. The door opened. For a second, I thought hope had returned. Nancy stepped out, Sean clinging behind, but she held a kitchen knife tight in her hand. Her voice trembled, sharp with terror. "Get away from us!" I froze. The blade quivered, her knuckles white. "It's me," I said. The words cracked, fragile. "It's Justin." Her face twisted, confusion cutting through fear, then hardening again. "I don't know you," Sean whimpered, his eyes brimmed with tears. "Mom, let's go inside." Nancy backed toward the door, never taking her eyes off me. The knife trembled, but her grip did not loosen. The lock slammed, the curtains closed. I stood alone. The night swallowed the street. The glow of the tower had gone, yet I felt its weight still pressing down, silent, watching. My knees buckled. I fell hard onto the pavement. My palms scraped raw. The rosary seared against my thigh. I pulled it free. The beads had fused into a single lump of black, the crucifix warped and bent. I hurled it into the street. It clattered once, then lay dead. The key followed. Cold iron. Useless now. It rang against the curb and spun into shadow. I pressed both hands to my face. Breath tore ragged. My chest shook with sobs that made no sound. Inside, life continued. I heard Sean's voice faint, muffled by walls, Nancy's low reassurance, words soothing him, their lives whole, complete, untouched by me. And that was the judgment, not fire, not death, erasure. Michael had spoken no lie. The punishment was absence, a void that swallowed my place in the world and left everything else untouched. I staggered to my feet and walked the block. Every house looked the same as before, but I saw the seams. Windows that had once held me reflected nothing. A photo in a neighbor's living room showed Nancy alone at a wedding, no groom. A birthday banner faded in memory. My name erased from every frame. I shouted once, raw to the sky. No answer. The silence mocked me. I walked until dawn, aimless. Strangers passed and did not look twice. The world had adjusted. I was a shadow, breathing but uncounted. At sunrise, the bells tolled once more. Not loud, not for the city, only for me. The sound lived in my chest. A note struck eternal. I fell to my knees on the empty street. Tears blurred the world. My voice cracked against the morning. I obeyed. But obedience did not matter. I was forgotten.